first game starting off is Boise State, Penn State. And this is a great game. Ashton, Jeanty, Heisman runner-up, playing with a little bit of fuel behind him after not winning that award, losing it to Travis Hunter, the two-way out of Colorado. But Boise State is the 3 seed in this playoff. They got the bye, undefeated in the Mountain West, and they go all the way up, snag the 3, Arizona State right behind them at the 4. Did not have to play last weekend, and they are fresh, rejuvenated, and ready for a playoff game. Penn State, on the other hand, went out and handled business against SMU. SMU just started off so slow. That defense was way too much for that SMU offense. Took that game 38-10, and it was really never even close. They looked dominant, but that is not the fault of Penn State. That is not the fault of SMU. I feel like they were both deserving of the playoff. SMU was very deserving of their spot. They just weren't fit for their spot, and I think that's a misconception that a lot of people are getting wrong. I see people all over the place saying, oh, this team was undeserving. This team did not deserve to be in the playoff. They lost 38-10. This team did not deserve to be in that bracket pool whatsoever. That's just straight up wrong. It's not the team's fault. It's also not the committee's fault. You can't come out and bash the committee. When a team performs the way they do, 11-2 all throughout the season, one of those losses being in the conference title and the other loss being to a team at the time that was ranked like 12th by 3 points, they have a solid resume. They deserve to be in that playoff. It's not their fault. They don't make the schedules. They don't determine who they play. They don't do anything of that nature. They just go out, play these games, and they found themselves in a spot. They were deserving. They just weren't fit. They weren't ready for this game. They can't compete with a team like Penn State. And we saw that show up in this game. It's not that they weren't deserving of that spot. It's just they literally could not fit up and play against that caliber of a team in that weather, in that stadium. The noise was too much. The weather was too much. That defense was too much. Penn State is just on a whole nother level than SMU, and SMU can't control that. The only thing they go out and do is win football games and put themselves in a position to make a run, and that's exactly what they did. So they're not going to be punished for putting themselves in that position. They're obviously going to get a playoff spot. They're deserving of it. They're just not fit for it. They weren't ready to play this caliber of a game, and that's, again, not their fault. It's also not the committee's fault. You cannot bash the committee for a team doing exactly what they need to do to earn themselves a postseason bid according to the rules and then not give them the bid. That wouldn't be fair to the committee. That wouldn't be fair to SMU. That wouldn't be fair to SMU fans. That wouldn't be fair to anyone. We already saw this type of controversy. Expanding the 12 is exactly what everyone wanted to avoid that controversy. Now you want to bring it back in? No, SMU was deserving of the spot. They just weren't fit for it. They just weren't ready for this game. They're just not the caliber of a team that Penn State is. So you can't get mad at the committee. You can't get mad at SMU. You can't get mad at anyone except yourselves for being too arrogant to see that SMU was deserving. They just weren't fit. So I hate the argument that it's the committee's fault or it's the team's fault, because it's not. Neither one of those are true. It's the fans' fault for expecting a super high-scoring game between Southern Methodist and Penn State. It's not going to happen. Penn State is just a whole different caliber team, and that was something you could expect going into that game. So again, it's not the committee's fault. It's not SMU's fault. It's no one's fault. It's football. The more teams you expand into the playoff, the bigger the skill difference is going to be from the top to the bottom. That's just nature. The original 4-team playoff was this 12-team playoff semifinals. So, of course, the first round might not be the most exciting round in the world. Of course, you might see some hiccups. You might see some duds. That's going to happen. It's the first round. That's like making the argument that March Madness is a terrible tournament because Kansas goes out and beats Eastern Tennessee State by 40 points. That's expected to happen. That's the result that you expect going into that game. You can't get mad at these teams for putting on that performance. You can't get mad at the committee for laying out the tournament in that style. That's not their fault. The only thing that happened was Penn State went out and played to the caliber of football they should have and took care of an SMU team that they should have taken care of. That's all that happened. And I think Boise State poses a much better threat to Penn State than SMU ever did. I just think SMU had a cupcake schedule in a conference that was very, very weak this year. Didn't have to play much competition until the ACC title game. We saw how that went, and then they went and they got battered by Penn State. That's not really an out-of-the-ordinary situation, especially for a first-round game. But I do think Boise State is deserving of being a higher seed, maybe deserving of a bye. I mean, yeah, they did exactly what they needed to. Finished the season 12-1, perfect in the Mountain West. Only loss was to Oregon by 3, who's been ranked number 1 majority of the season. So I think this game's going to be a lot better than Penn State SMU. I think this will be a game that comes down to the third, fourth quarter, and they're going to be fighting, exchanging blows, especially like what we already mentioned, Ashton Jeanty running with a little bit of authority and doing what he has to do after being snubbed of what he rightfully thought was his Heisman Trophy. So I believe this game is going to be much, much better than SMU Penn State ever was. And I believe this could be a four-quarter game. This could be an overtime game. If they keep it close, if this Boise State offense that we've known to be so explosive and so good all year comes out and performs, this could be a great game down to the wire final minutes. I mean, but if Penn State's defense comes out and they play the way that they've been playing all season, they have 2 losses. They are 11-2 on the season. Their 2 losses were to Ohio State by 1 possession and to Oregon in the Big Ten Championship also by 1 possession. 2 of the most dangerous teams in the country by 1 possession in big important games. This is a Penn State team that's been flying under the radar. They've been doing it ever since James Franklin's become the head coach. They win, they lose big important games that don't have they have a big implication, but they don't have too much damage on their record because it's a strength of record thing. You lose those games, you win everything else you need to, you take care of business wherever else you need to, and you sort of just fly under the radar. That's how it's always been for this Penn State team. They always find themselves in a New Year's Six Bowl. They always find themselves ranked 5th, 6th, 7th, just outside of that bubble when the season ends. So now this expanded playoff allows them to make a statement and get hot at the right time. And I think that's what this Penn State team is doing. I think they are a dangerous team. I think they have one of the best defenses in the country. I think they suffocated SMU, who has a decent offense. And I think they're going to continue to impose threats on teams that are offense heavy reliant, like Boise State with their big rush game and Ashton Jeanty. I think a defense like Penn State has the ability to slow him down and stop him completely and just take him out of that game and win this game convincingly in the second quarter. I think it'd be a type of game that Penn State's defense comes out and they just make an absolute statement. Ashton Jeanty, 30 rushes, 50 yards, something criminal like that. I think Penn State has the capability on both sides of the ball to make this a lopsided game very fast and get out of hand to the point Boise State never really has a chance to get back in this thing. But I also think Boise State's caliber of a team has a chance to come out and pose a threat on Penn State's defense. Ashton Jeanty breaks 2 rushes right away, and they blow the top off this game. I think it's a chance for either of these things to happen. It's the Fiesta Bowl. Boise State has some good history in the Fiesta Bowl. These teams are just fit up. They're ready to play. It's the quarterfinals, and it's going to be a way better matchup than we ever saw in the first round. I think Penn State, Boise State has potential to be an amazing game, and I also think it has potential for Penn State to come out, be one of the best, most dangerous teams in the country, completely eliminate that offense, and go out and take care of this game in 2 quarters, maybe 3. It could be either type of those games. I personally, hear me out, between these 2 type of options, I think these are the only 2 we're going to get, and I think the one we will get, mark my words right here, right now, I think Penn State is going to eliminate Boise State's run game completely. I think Ashton Jeanty's not going to be able to get anything going on the ground. I think Penn State's going to fit up. They're going to fit up in pass lanes. They're not going to allow anything through the air. They're going to fit up in the run gaps. Ashton Jeanty's going to go nowhere. Their backup's going to go nowhere. I think Penn State has a commanding 4-possession lead going into the half, and I think they just ride out the momentum throughout the 4 quarters of the game. Penn State wins this game by 4 or 5 possessions, making a statement, advancing into the next round, facing an interesting team in either Georgia, Notre Dame, whoever they have to face off after this. But I think they get it done convincingly, and I think Penn State moves on to the next round and has everyone really just shaking their head, looking at the Nittany Lions going, okay, they're serious. They mean business. Penn State is a very dangerous team, I believe, down the stretch, and I think they will get this one done convincingly and knock Boise State out. All their momentum completely just washed down the drain, allowing Penn State to advance to the final 4 teams remaining in this bracket.